Okay. Welcome to the Check-In Podcast. My name is Camryn Joi. And if you're new to this episode or new to this show, the Check-In Podcast is a podcast where I invite teens and young adults, but really everybody, to come and check in. We check in about the successes, the failures, and everything in between in our lives. And this theme this season, as you guys already know, it is self-care, but not necessarily what social media has claimed self-care to be over the past couple of months as a trend, or even years, but what I think self-care is. So in the spirit of self-care today, the topic we're going to be talking about is adult friendship, or friendship in adulthood. And I have two of my very close friends with me today joining me on the episode. I have Kyara and Emerald. Hi, RC. And RC's down here, but you guys can't see him.
RC.
Making his first appearance on the Check-In
Come
Pod.
on, RC debut.
Anything you want to say to the audience?
So introduce you guys selves.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Emerald.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kyara, as mentioned. Let's say I have known Camryn for my whole life, actually. We've all known each other.
We've all known each other.
Our parents had, probably all at some point, were all pregnant together.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. So
The year was 1999.
it was a warm day.
Busy year.
Busy year.
And a lot of us were born at around the same time. We're church friends first, and then just lifelong friends immediately
Sisters after that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the way that I start every show, as you guys already know, is I ask all of my guests, and then I follow up after. If you could use one word to describe this week so far, what would that word be for you?
I would use the word errands.
Okay. You did say that. Okay, why do you say the word errands? Give people context.
Yeah, so I'm starting a new internship next week, and I just arrived back in town. I live in California. So this week has just been kind of spent preparing, getting all the onboarding stuff ready, getting my parking pass and background checks and all that stuff done, picking up my brother from school and taking him to his whatever things he had going on, taking my dog to the groomers. Like, it's just been a lot of, like, running around, doing the kind of day-to-day things you gotta do.
Right.
Yeah, I hear that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about you, Kyara?
I would say, if I had to pick a word to describe my week, I think I would say restless. You know, there was a lot, I feel like in conjunction with work, and I've been picking up a lot of extra shifts lately, as well as just always feeling like there's something else to do, you know.
Yeah.
Not checking off one thing on the checklist and then adding two more things. It's like there's always something going on. And so I've kind of felt like a little bit of, unfortunately, like a lack of peace in that regard. Like, you know, waking up like, okay, I got to do something else, and not really getting as much sleep as I would like. So this has been a restless week for me, but I'm definitely glad to be at the weekend with my girls to help push me through. What about you, Kim?
This week, I would say my word has been, like, anxious. But I always get, like, anxious around this time of year. Like, it's just, like, the year is, like, wrapping up.
Yeah.
I feel that.
In itself, and you feel like you kind of want to accomplish a lot of things. And then this is, like, a part of the year where you're spending a lot of money, because even if, like, you don't necessarily celebrate Christmas, like, there's still just so many things to, like, so many holidays that bunch up or all around the same time. You're spending money on groceries, travel, all of those things. So I've been, like, you know, anxious about finances, anxious about just the amount of time I have in my day, anxious about just making sure, this is also the time of year that people get sick, so just making sure, like, everybody in my family is healthy, and I'm maintaining my health as well, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. So that's the word I would use for this week, but anxiety is not new to me, as you guys already know, so I'm at the weekend, and I'm feeling good, to be honest.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to check in.
Yeah, and like, we had this reset. Like, we tried to film this at 2 a.m. yesterday. Bad idea. But we're back. We're refreshed. We're ready to go.
Yes.
So, in the spirit of self-care, let's just talk about, in general, how do you guys think friendship plays a role in self-care?
I would say, for me especially, I'm pretty ambiverted, so like I can be extroverted at times and I can be introverted at times. I definitely think as I've gotten older, I've leaned more into introversion. But there are still times when I feel like you can get energy back by spending time with your friends, you know?
Yeah, I definitely understand what you mean by that.
Yeah, and I say that as, like, I've become way more of an introvert, and, like, you know, going out to social things can be more of a, you know, it can be like a task, you know?
Yeah.
Not to say that you don't want to do them.
Yeah, no.
But it's like, you want to see people, you want to hang out and stuff like that, but it becomes something that requires energy from you. But I think friendship, whether it's includes kind of that activity of like going out and doing things, or whether it's just like, you know, sharing that emotional bond, you know, with people who are closest to you, at times that can be recharging. Even when it does zap your energy in like a physical way.
Yeah.
It's like emotionally it builds you up. Again.
Yeah.
And I think that's a form of self-care.
Yeah.
As well. It's like making sure that you're emotionally full.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I think too, there's an aspect of like, you know, if we're talking about what people typically think is self-care, like making sure that you are, you know, keeping up with like your hygiene and looking good and like taking care of your body. I think when you are, you know, it's nice when you have these kind of friendships where also you don't have to do too much or stress too much or get overly ready, what have you, and it kind of still fills your cup in that way. But I think it's nice to sometimes when you're, whether it's like because, you know, things have been too busy or you're in a rut or feeling like depressed or overwhelmed or tired, what have you, sometimes it's easy to like bed rot and like sit, you know, sit in bed, not get up and do your hair or like, you know, whether do your makeup or whether like, you know, get active or fit or walk around or any of those things. Like it's very easy to like sit in the house and eat whatever you have in there, not do too much or take too much care of yourself. And so I feel like sometimes too there's a self-care in that, in terms of like getting up and saying, okay, I'm gonna put myself together, I'm gonna feel good about myself, put on an outfit that I like and go out and spend time with people and like really pour into myself in that way too, which is interesting.
I feel like you just mentioning like in terms of like pouring into yourself, like that's what I think is the purpose of like friendships in terms of like self-care. Like Emerald said, like for example, yesterday was physically exhausting. We went to bed at 6 a.m. for no reason. There was absolutely no reason to go to bed at 6 a.m. But and I had to go to work today, but I just ended up like calling out because it was just like, yes, I could have used the money, but the cost, it was like outweighing the cost, like like the cost of like cutting like my time short with my friends who like, you know, I see Kyara more frequently than I see like Emerald. I only see Emerald like a handful of times a year. And then just like knowing that like, even though like I said, like it was physically exhausting to go to bed at 6 a.m., it's like it's almost kind of like we didn't like want to go to bed anyways, because we were just up talking and hanging out and vibing. So it's like, you know, sometimes you have to make those, or sometimes not even you have to, but sometimes those decisions are going to be made for you. Sometimes you're in the presence of your friends and you just like don't want to leave, and it's like because you need to be like recharged in that way. And I think a lot of what I've been doing with self-care like this year is just like really trying to be just very in tune with my body and like what I need, because like all these external pressures like they're gonna be there like regardless. Life is gonna life. You feel what I'm saying? So like I said that I was really anxious financially this week, but like I still like skipped out of work today. It's because like at the end of the day, like my body didn't need to run on 5 hours of sleep and go to work and show up and run around and do all this stuff. Like my body needed to rest, and my body needed to like just be able to take it slow for at least one day this week. So that's how I feel like friendships kind of like contribute to self-care.
Yeah, and good friendships push you to do things like that, you know, take care of yourself and to be more present. And sometimes in times where like, there are times where I'm pushing myself a little bit too hard, and one of you guys might tell me, "Oh, well, I think you can take a break, or I think you can have that little cheat meal or whatever."
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's like, okay, I gave myself that, and I feel good, and then I can kind of pick back up with a regular routine that doesn't allow me that as much.
Yeah, and it's both. It's both like your friends being able to allow you to have like that grace for yourself and to like take that, little vacation from routine if you need to, and also having friends being able to be accountability partners for you and being able to like push you to like go to the gym when you don't want to go, or like, oh, are you still eating healthy like you said you would, like that type of stuff as well.
And there's that truth to self-care sometimes is giving yourself grace as well as holding yourself to a higher standard for what you want yourself to be, or the person you want to be maybe in like XYZ amount of time. So like you said, that's important too, like to have that balance. I don't need you to necessarily be like my sergeant and be like super duper firm, but at the same time I don't want you to be too lax and there to be and obviously you have different friends for different things, which is an important aspect too. But it's nice when you're able to have some of that variety and like balance within your friendship, so that that I'm growing and it doesn't always look the same all the time.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I think what you guys were saying was reminding me of, we had like some training in school one time about like burnout, and I'm not gonna lie, I still think that most of this is just like a corporate lie to like get people to work more.
Like,
but
trainings on burnout, how to not be burned out.
Right. You guys are burning me out.
How'd you just pay me?
No, for
and
real.
I don't work.
But they were saying like, oh, it's not just about always having more time off or more like time to rest. It's also about like feeling more fulfilled in the things that you're doing, which I'm like, But yeah, what I was gonna say is that I think spending time with your friends can sometimes be like that, like something that's restful and re-energizing, even though you're not actually resting, which is what I think we were all kind of saying. And it's like kind of same thing that it does fight against burnout, because even though it's like a more purposeful time.
Yeah.
I think that's so true, actually. Like, because I can, I think about days where I've had off, like, where I've done absolutely nothing, and it hasn't necessarily been recharged me the way that, like, I feel like it should have, if that makes sense. Like, because, like, sometimes I'll be off, and I'll be like, I wish I was doing something. Which is also, like, not bad, but, like, not always the healthiest, like, mindset to have when you're taking the much needed rest that you need. But, like, speaking of, like, purposeful, do you guys feel like, so I feel like our friendship is not necessarily easy, but it's more so convenient because we've been friends for so long. And then on top of that, our parents are friends and we just interact with each other so often. Do you guys feel like you guys are intentional about making friendships, outside of us, and outside of like the spaces that have been easy for us to make friendships in your adulthood?
Yeah, I'll let Kyara take this because I feel like I'm still kind of in the bubble. I'm still in school, so I'm still kind of surrounded by that, pool of people where, friendship is sometimes out of convenience. Not to say I don't love my friends, but a lot of it is like proximity and, going through the same kind of circumstance.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. I think when I really think about, friendships made in adulthood, it's so interesting because you can get to a point where a lot of people don't necessarily have this like ease and experience of carrying their childhood friends to this point in life. You know what I mean? Like, we've known each other for so long and stuck through lots of different things with each other's ups and downs and changes in our own lives and changes in the others. So it's really interesting to still have this, but I think outside of that, maybe it's because I got too comfortable with the ease of having friends like the ones that I do, but I think it is difficult for sure to find and relate to other people in adulthood. Some of the things that, one of the biggest parts of friendship a lot of the time is having something that ties you two together, and a lot of time that is shared experience, or like whether it's community from church or is it from work or career path or something in lifestyle. Like, a lot of people meet their friends when it's something else that they're doing, which is interesting fact too, because part of it is like some people don't feel like they go out enough or do things because they don't have the friends, and that's why you have to do those things by yourself too, because you know, if you don't leave the house because you don't have the friends, you can't make them. But a lot of people, you know, whether it's because they're going to the gym or because they're going to church or they're going to this activity, what have you, a lot of times that's where they meet those people and do those things. I feel like a lot of time too, especially because of the career that I work in, when you're in the hospital all the time and like spending so much time with patients and people, and I can like go through a day and like, you know, depending on the area I'm working in, I could see like 40 different patients or 50 patients. If I'm triaging, I might see, you know, 50 patients or something in a day, for example. And then I want to go home and like I don't want to have to like go and like, you know, go through all this talking and reintroduce sometimes and things like that. So I think sometimes it's important to make that intentionality, but it definitely is difficult in that way. I think, especially for my personality type, I like, there's a comfort in somebody coming up to you and doing that effort for you to come and like, oh, you know, oh, tell me about yourself and whatever. And you kind of get to know them, and it's a little bit less stressful or pressure. And there's still like a childlike aspect of like creating friendships in adulthood, because I don't know, it's not as like mature and like clean cut and suit and tie as you think it is, in terms of like, oh yeah, you know, this is my friend such and such or whatever. There's still an aspect of wanting somebody to like you or like, you know, find you cool enough, or like you guys share same interests, or not doing anything to offend them or whatever. And there's a lot of learning and like discovery that goes on in that. And so I don't want to say that I haven't done that, but I think it's hard to get them past a certain point, because there's a comfort and like there's a naturalness here in some of the friendships that we've had for so long, because they're easy and we've seen each other through these different phases, and it takes a while, but you get to know each other and really, really, really know each other. And then there's some people that you meet from work, or and then sometimes you just have your guard up with people too, but there's some people that you meet in all these different other circumstances, and you guys get to laugh a little bit when you see each other, and you guys talk and, you know, catch up on some of these light things. But there's like a little bit of a wall that you have to penetrate, I feel like, when you're getting past a certain not Miss Social Lubrication.
That's why I'm laughing. That's why I'm laughing, because there was all this fanfare when I said social lubrication.
I thought you were going to entertain that. Please. I'm sorry about this. Okay. I say that to say that you do have to kind of cross a certain, it gets to a point where you're crossing a bridge over from like a little more superficial relationship to like a deep friendship with somebody. Yeah. And even where there's a point where you can be like, oh, that's my friend or whatever. But when somebody really knows you, someone's really your friend like that, like, I don't know, that takes some time to get to. And sometimes it requires you to have someone that's able to, you know, trying to pass that point, and you also to be ready to receive it and open to that, right? So that's something I think about a lot. I'm not sure how well a job I do at it, in terms of like being intentional with building friendships past a certain point. And two, with like, you know, different communication styles and things. Like there's some people that know me and have learned different things about whether, you know, when I'll text them or like what I'm doing or who I am and all that stuff. And then it's like, you know, having to relearn that with somebody else or adjust to that. I don't know, sometimes can even feel like a little bit performative, like not natural, because you're still trying to get to that point of like friendship. And it's just interesting. It requires a lot though.
I would say I feel like all friendships require work, but I think that in the case of our friendships and like friendship like similar to ours, like we've been doing the work over the years, but it hasn't really felt like work.
Right,
if that makes sense.
Right.
Because it's like we've had like that foundation of familiarity and just like having to be forced into the same spaces all the time. So like the work seems easier, or it's like I don't know, but like I think in adulthood, like people aren't necessarily willing to put into. I work with kids, and I work at a school, and kids are so much more like vulnerable than I feel like we give them like credit for, because like a lot of times like you'll see them like make friendships out of nothing, like out of nothing. Like you never like. I love when I see kids that I never see them talk. And then maybe somebody brings a Rubik's Cube one day. and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were into that. And then all of a sudden they're attached at the hip, and they find like different ways to like, you know, find different interests that they share, and just different ways to like relate to each other. And I feel like adults can do that too. But what I've noticed, I feel like in this day and age, especially our generation, is that we do that a lot online. But then in person is like, we're like, we don't do that.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I noticed. And the other thing I noticed is this obsession with low maintenance friendships. I do not get that. Like, when people talk about low maintenance friendships, they always jump to, we don't have to talk every day. And like, right? But like, there are people who go months without talking to each other. I'm like, not even talking to each other, but like just not even like interacting with each other. Like
even checking in, sending memes, like that type of stuff.
That's what I'm saying. And like, to that extent, that's like not lazy, but it's not like fully putting in the work to like maintain that friendship. But like, at least I know you're alive, and you're like, you still got your sense of humor, and you still can like respond to me and stuff like that. Like, there's people who talk about low maintenance friendships and like, yeah, I could not talk to you for 6 months, but I know nothing's changed. No. No. If you don't talk to me for 6 months, I'm going to think something has changed. And if I see you after the 6 months, I'm going to act like something's changed. So,
you know, I feel like I hear that almost completely. I feel like when I'm growing up, my mom has had, and I think it's different though once you hit like a certain phase of life. And when like, also with like your friends who are not in the same area, like if you and I live in the same state and we're like supposed to be like really good friends, and we don't talk to each other or see each other for months and months and months and months or whatever, and we're supposed to be like really good friends, okay, it's getting a little weird, but but like, for example, my mom has a friend who lives in Texas, and they may go like, she said there was like a period of transition, I guess, too, when they were living in different states, and like they had a lot going on individually with themselves, with their kids, with marriage, and like they don't talk very often, but when they talk, it's like nothing has changed. Like, it's almost like a sense of like, oh, you know, yeah, like, how are the boys? I've been praying for you guys. I've been thinking about you guys, this and that. And there's a lot of overwhelming like weight to that. But I also think though, and I guess that probably will just tie me back to like being in tune more with what you said. I think that there's a little bit of a generational difference in terms of like how friendships were and are treated and are like really cultivated and carried out based on, you know, and I guess it's different for everyone, but kind of in like the communities that we're in.
Like that. And all these other apps that people are on. So it's like, again, like if you're on these apps and stuff like that, and I still haven't heard from you, like that's where like I'm like, that's weird. Like, you posting, you texting, you doing all this stuff, but I can't hear from you. So like that throws me sometimes.
I think it really depends on like the situation as well though, because I think like what you're talking about is people who like don't contribute any effort into their friendships, which I think is a little bit different than like people who are just kind of like in the midst of all the things that are happening in their life and maybe not in the space at the moment to continually be like available to other people in that way. I don't know. I know that there's been periods going through medical school when I was like very, very busy, and I just did not have the bandwidth to like reach out to people who weren't really in my immediate vicinity. It's like all the time that I wasn't studying, I was sleeping, and like I don't know, it's hard because it's like you do want to treasure and grow your friendships and maintain even the ones that you have and stuff. But there are those periods that you go through where it's never personal, but it's like not even that I can't. Sometimes it's just like I don't want to. Like, I'm tired. If I reached out to you, you wouldn't be getting like the fun, energetic version of myself. You'd be getting the drained whatever part. But I guess that also kind of goes back to what we were talking about in our kind of previous conversation about like how friendships can energize you and stuff like that. I think that is something to be explored, and that is like sometimes like easier said than done, if that makes sense.
And I think there's like a version of that probably in anybody's life. You know what I mean? With what it looks like. Like, maybe for you it might be more like med school. For Camryn, it might be more like work-life balance, or like different other like respective like engagements or opportunities too that she's working on, as well as her own passions that she's working on. And then for me, like, maybe a combination of that, like work and she's doing AV, I'm doing AY. Like, everybody always has a lot of different things going on. I feel like there is have to be like a space of grace for that and understanding for that, because it does require, like, it does take energy and time for that. But just like the same too, not only just giving each other grace for that, and even sometimes acknowledging that, well, like when it has been a while or that you haven't talked, and saying like, prefacing with like, I know it's been a while for this or that, or this is what's been going on with me and this is why I haven't been able to check in and this and that. But also too, I think kind of, just like how they say like every relationship is not going to be 50-50. There's like parts of it where, I only have 25% to give and I need you to pick up the 75, or I need you to give me, etc. So I think sometimes people typically like reference that in terms of romantic relationship, but I think in platonic relationship and friendships, there's an aspect of that too, right? Where it's like, okay, I know that this week Kim has all these other things going on, and we may not be able to like hang out or do this or do that, but I'm going to check in with her because I know that she needs that from me. You know what I mean? She may not be the one reaching out to me this week, or like, I know this upcoming week, for example, maybe like it's Emerald's birthday, or Emerald is, I know she has a lot of tests and different things going on, so we may not talk this week at all, or we may not like check in or this and that, but maybe, what I'll do to consider her based off what she said is reach out and ask her how things went for her exam, or how did her interview go with her for her internship. So it's kind of those things too. When someone else doesn't have it to give, knowing, and I guess there has to be that like continual loop though, because if you don't have it to give, like, I think that's understandable that you don't have it to give, because I've been there a lot of times where I don't. But also being able to also, not that you have to announce it or anything, but like when you do talk with your friends, not saying like, oh, I don't want to talk to you, but also saying like, I'm so tired this week, and like, I think that's why you got to check in. No, I think that's like that's one of the, so important parts of like when we're talking about our friendships.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
And I also think it's like with adult friendships, it's hard because life is just not as convenient as it used to be. So it's like, I'm thinking back to being in college when it's like you want to hang out with someone and you can just go down the hall in the dorm and knock on the door. And that's the easiest, like simplest, way to like commune with people and like hang out with people. Exactly.
Yeah, simpler times, much simpler times.
Now I'm like, me and my friend Courtney, we were trying to like schedule a call for weeks. And it's like
yes.
Things are coming up and, oh, sorry, I have to go to this meeting, or oh, I don't have that long today, or like, and then being across coast, it's like the time difference, and it's like, okay, I only have this time available, but I know it's going to be 11 p.m. for you, and like.
But also like what you make a priority, because I think what I think is that sometimes we think things are of higher priority when they don't have to be. Like, there are certain things that you make a priority that you don't get paid to do, you don't get any type of compensation to do, but you have committed yourself to something or someone else, and so you are able to make that commitment. But then when it comes to like your friends, like falling through on that commitment, and it's just like, what's to say that those things have priority like over your friends, like society, your parents, expectations that you have for yourself. Like, I think like sometimes when it comes to that, like, again, like priority, like I said, like today I was supposed to go to work, but like this was just this like moment I like get to spend with you guys was just like of higher priority for me, in the sense of like what I could afford, like what I could afford to lose. Like I could afford to, and then on top of that, I have multiple jobs. So sometimes I feel like I have to like run myself ragged and like go to every single job and commit to every single thing. Even like sometimes with church, like sometimes like I've been working all week, and the Sabbath is supposed to be a day of rest. I cannot serve every Sabbath. Like AV would love for me to serve every Sabbath, and that is just insane to me. When do I get to rest? Like, you know what I mean? So I think like making things priority, and just kind of like getting out of that like mindset that think like something is more priority than the relationships that you have in your life. Because I think like, you know, that's like the quickest way to kind of fall into like a resentful um mode with people. Like you see it in relationships, you see it in marriages, you see it in like just so many other facets of your life that like where people are not making the relationship a priority. And
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like you can only prioritize, like you only have so much, you know, attention and hours in a day. And it's like, I don't know, I do think like it's like this really perfect balancing act that people don't always acknowledge, you know, where it's like you have to balance both being there and making your friends a priority if you want to strengthen relationships in your life, and at the same time you have to balance being able to, you know, have boundaries and stuff like that, and be able to say like, okay, there is a point where, you know, I have to prioritize myself as well, and my goals and my future, and whatever else you have going on in your life. And I say that again with the like caveat, or like just with the knowledge that it can be taken to the extreme. And like me and my other friends were talking about this the other day, about how we live in a culture now that is so like not only lazy when it comes to friendships, but also just like very selfish. And it's very like acceptable because now it's shrouded in this like therapy speak of like, oh, I can't pick you up from the airport because my boundaries, you know. And I feel like it's like something like that is just because yeah, like, oh, I can't help you move because, you know, I really need to I need to give myself whatever space or whatever. And it's like, I feel like it's weird because it's both. It's yes and. It's like, yeah, right. You do need to, you know, give yourself space and not run yourself ragged. And there's no way for you to, you know, be the one carrying all of the relationships in your life. And then at the same time, it's like relationships require work.
Okay, so that brings me kind of to my next question. Is there a friendship or relationship that you feel like scorned by that you're still like personally working through? Or no?
Wow. That's a big targeted question.
Hey, brother. I wasn't trying to target you guys.
No, I don't think you were. Oh. But I was just thinking about it. You know, like, that's what we were just talking about when we just said, like, I'm at your I'm at your door or whatever. I'm in your neighborhood or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I guess I'll answer that. I think, before I say that, to your point too, Emerald, I think too, I've also had, or at least I feel like I've felt, I don't want to say like necessarily more recently exactly, but I think for example, Vince is always very particular about, I feel like he prioritizes the things he has to do and he gets them done. Mm-hmm. And sometimes like that means that he's like, you know, he's talking to somebody and he has to get off the phone with them, or he wants us to spend the time, but he wants to make sure that he wants to go to sleep at a good time, so he'll like schedule himself to come over earlier to do this earlier or whatever, which makes sense. Mm-hmm. But I think that's something that I start to learn, I guess, or pick up from him, because I feel like myself, I was always I don't want to say always, but I was a little bit more I don't know, I would make a lot of bend over backwards or make a lot of space for people in times when maybe I shouldn't. There's lots of times where I don't, or I can't, right? And there's lots of times where I don't get me wrong, and just intentionality, but there's times where people, you know, someone calls and I am very tired, or I have work the next morning or what have you, and I stay up later than I should, or I do something, you know. Mm-hmm. And some of the times it's like, I need to pour into these relationships and I need this moment for myself, but there's lots of times where I'm doing it for one person and I'm doing it for them all the time. And it's hard too, because I think in that regard, you know, sometimes like none of us are at a lot of points are going to be at the same point in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes, like, it's very common for maybe some of us, for example, to have friends that have, probably all of us in different aspects, but have, like, maybe a friend who has a lot more time than we have, or like a lot more free time, or whether, or maybe someone that works from home and I work in, like, you know, I'm somewhere else, like I'm actually in the hospital while I'm working. And they have a lot more free time to chat or to do something while they're on the clock or what have you. And I don't have that same time. Like when I'm at work, I can't stay on the phone and like work, you know what I mean? Or I can't like go out and do something. And so I think that can be difficult in some ways, especially when you're trying to use some of that off time to prioritize like some of the things or the goals that you've set and things like that. But one thing too, which was not what I was going to say, but I think too that reminds me of Camryn. Like Camryn and I recently have been doing like working lunches or working breakfasts and things like that, where it's like you can fit it in where you want to in some of those aspects. Not everybody, not all the time for everybody, because sometimes it's like, you know, just things where it's like phone calls or different things like that. But also meeting each other where you're at, like sometimes there was days where I was off, but Camryn has to work, but she doesn't have to work until 2:00. And so it's like, okay, let's go for breakfast. And while we're at breakfast, we know we have a couple things to work on. I'm gonna do some writing. You might do some editing for this. You know what I mean? I'm gonna work on some modules for work, what have you. And we'll spend that time together, whether we're still laughing or chatting a little bit. We're still able to push each other as well to be productive and spend that time and kind of fit in. This is what I have to give right now. It's only maybe 15 minutes or only a couple hours, but I have to be doing something else at the same time. So I think that's so important too. But to answer your other question, is there a relationship that I feel, or a friendship you said that I feel scorned by, that I'm still recovering from? Do you want to go first? She must be like, no. The answer is no.
I mean, I can think of a couple friendships.
Ooh, really?
Not to say.
I didn't see that one coming.
That makes me sound so.
Chat, is it getting serious? Chat, is this play about us? I'm just kidding.
I'm screaming. I can think of two, actually. I'm just kidding.
Right.
But
thinking of
two.
Oh. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No, but Dig, okay, I'm gonna answer your question, but when you were talking, it made me think about something else.
I know, that's why I was trying to answer Cam's question, but then I thought about something to yours. And go ahead. Go ahead.
Which is just that.
No, I love your question. You have to rephrase it again.
I was talking to someone the other day about how, like, you know, people have all these kids. And, and it's like you cannot parent like 7 kids. Like not well. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You know, trad wives with the 10 kids. Like,
well, we have to be honest here.
Yeah.
Right. We're checking in, and we're not gonna check into lies. Right. We're checking into truth.
Yeah. And there's just not enough hours in a day. Like, you can't know in depth like 10 kids. And I think it's the same thing with friendships. Maybe part of it is like you have to choose to prioritize some friendships over others and just choose like your circle and really pour into that, which sounds terrible. Like, I think you should have like as many friends as you want, but maybe not all on the same level. But it's just like, not everybody, you can't check in with everybody every week, but maybe there are those people who you know take that extra priority to, like, you know, check in and like you know, do the thing. And I think that's hard, and it feels like harsh and selective in some ways, but it's like, it's the truth. It's like, you can't parent 6 kids, you can't, you know, maintain deep close friendships with 15 people. You just can't do that. And work and have a relationship and have family responsibilities and have extracurricular, like, that's too much stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I'm going to mention somebody who probably everybody knows this person. There's probably somebody listening to this podcast that will know this person because he has so many friends. TJ. If you're listening, I'm talking about you. TJ has so many friendships. It is like, and he recently had a birthday party for when he turned 25 this past year, and there were so many. He had so many people that he could fill a room, and I guarantee you that had to be like 100 people in there. And I guarantee you that at least, even if he didn't feel like that towards them, a lot of those people felt like they were his close friends. Like they were like, he's like my best friend. He's like one of my closest friends. Even if he doesn't feel that same towards them.
the calls coming from inside the house because that's Kyara. That is Kyara. There
I
are
think that's very true. Yeah,
so many people feel like. Do you know how many people call Kyara their best friend? And I'm like, oh. Interesting.
Wait, I don't recall. Wait, I think we're losing the plot slightly. I don't think that's true. I think maybe at a point that might have been a little bit more true. Wait, because now see, guys, how they have me flustered.
Flustered with honesty, flustered with truth.
My point was that there was a point recently where he kind of said that, you know, he wants to be great friends with all these people, even people that want to be friends with him that he doesn't really feel that close to or connected to. Mm-hmm. But he has to kind of realize, like, one, he was doing himself a disservice and them a disservice to, like, be, I'm like, you're my best friend or you're whatever, like, to be trying to maintain these friendships with people that he doesn't have capacity for.
Yeah.
Right? And then, like, you know, giving them this half friendship. And then also, too, it's like, you know, it takes a lot to be, like, you know, trying to have these relationships with all of these people. And, you know, he still does it. But I say all that to say, when you look at someone like that, not to say that he doesn't do it well. He does a great job with a lot of the friendships that he maintains and keeps. Mm-hmm. But there's so many people, and it can be a lot, and it can be taxing, and it can be, like, draining when really a lot of the time you want it to fulfill you. But then it's like, oh, man, I got to spend time with this person. Like, my goodness. Like, it shouldn't feel so much like that. And if you have, you know, again, like when you have nothing against the 7 kid families, right?
Yes,
respect to what y'all got going on. But as for me and my house, it's like not the thing. No, but I feel like, but I do feel like they're, you know, like the same way, like, okay, you can. It's not that you can't parent the 7 kids, but can you do it well? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, exactly, you can birth them, but are you able to maintain relationship with them? Are not most of, if not all of the kids going to resent you for the fact that you haven't spent the time with them or you don't have the capacity for them, etc. Obviously, you can maintain some of those friendships, but you do have to make that choice of, like, okay, these people, which my mom had talked to me about a long time ago, said, like, you know, there's tiers sometimes for those friendships. Sometimes somebody does something and you realize maybe this is not the level of friendship that I thought it was. And that's okay. Like, you know, maybe this person is not the person that I want to tell certain things to, or maybe this is not the person who I want to go out and spend this kind of time with, because maybe that's just not where they fall for me. So kind of making that choice to say, these are the people that, you know, are that I need to check in with, or like have that. You know what? You know what they say. What they say is that you're supposed to just, like, keep going. No one will notice. Cameron's like, actors, wow, what am I doing? What? But yeah, I think, you know, you kind of what you kind of sorry about that. What you kind of look at is just seeing, hey, I have these, you know, these friends, and these are the ones maybe that I might have to put some of that extra energy and capacity in for, and the rest might get, you know, some other chickens just maybe not in the same frequency and things like that. And yeah, it can be difficult sometimes make that choice or that decision, but also I think if it probably in the betterment and, like, in the, you know, with time to be able to actually cultivate stronger, deeper friendships with some people, because it's like jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. Right. You do have to hone in on a couple of those, so I totally understand that too. Yeah. But now talk about your 2 friendships, or talk about that few friendships that have been scored.
Or, like, I'll rephrase the question.
No, I liked it. Well, go ahead.
Have you ever let go of a friend?
She was like, oh, well, I don't want to answer my question. But yeah, go ahead.
Have you ever, like, let go of a friendship? And, like, if so, like, what did that teach you?
Yeah, I feel like you should take this one.
But you said you had multiple.
Okay.
What's she trying to say, Chad?
I feel like I've never like intentionally let go of a friendship because I was able to recognize, like, that this is not what I want. It's been more of, I mean, actually, I guess I have, but it's more of, like, you know, you can have, like I've had people who I considered, like, friends or, like, mutual friends in the past or whatever, and then maybe you'll go through a situation where you don't necessarily, like, maybe, like, it's a difficult situation and you're in conflict with the person in some way. And then, like, after that, it just may feel like, in that hypothetical situation, that that you no longer want to have that person as a friend. I feel like that's more, it's more like I've never had, like, a situation where I was like, I, you know, really enjoy being friends with this person, but I realize, like, this is not, like, healthy for me, so I'm going to put this aside. It's been more of either growing apart from people or, like, realizing, like, maybe this isn't somebody I want to be friends with, actually. Like, maybe this is, I only, we were talking about, we only have so much time. It's like, this isn't someone I want to spend time with. And I think that's also something I had to learn as I got older, because I think, kind of like what Kyara was saying earlier, the childish part of you wants everyone to like you.
Yeah.
And that was something I struggled with a lot growing up. Like, I really just wanted everybody to like me without realizing, like, I don't like everybody.
Right.
Yes.
You actually don't like you. So why do I care if you like me, right?
Yeah. It'd be like that.
It did be like that. That's so interesting.
I feel like I experienced that, like, multiple times. Like, okay, with the part of I actually don't like you, like, why do I need you to like me? I feel like I experienced that maybe, like, sometimes with, like, it's always tricky trying to turn coworkers into friends.
Always tricky.
Do not recommend. I'm trying to think of any coworkers that I've had as friends that I'm, like, still friends with currently. I've worked so many places, had so many jobs. No, I feel like my thing is trying to like, hold space for everybody. Talking like the septum piercing men, trying to hold space for everybody. And then, like, kind of like sometimes here's something that happens. Sometimes you run into people who immediately want to latch onto you. And it's like, oof, I don't know if I'm, like, trying to get that close to you. No tea, no shade. But then it's like, okay, you know what? Maybe this is a friendship I'm supposed to have. And then you realize, no, it's not. Because they tried to latch onto you, and you're trying to figure out if you look like a host or something. like
if I look like a host or something, it's crazy.
Funny.
You feel what I'm saying? So I've had experiences like that with friendships where I've had to be like, you know what, actually, like, I don't necessarily owe this person a friendship. Like, I owe them decency, I owe them courtesy, respect, you know, all that stuff. But I don't owe them, like, a friendship. You feel what I'm saying?
And I feel like, snap to that.
You know, sometimes, like, you run into people, and again, it's the childlike thing in you where you feel like you may owe somebody a friendship. Yeah. And it's like being in adulthood and, like, having those boundaries. Like, okay, like, actually, I don't owe you a friendship. I owe you, you know, respect. I owe you a hello, a greeting when I see you, and stuff like that. But I actually do not have to hang out with you outside of work. I don't have to give you my number, God forbid. I don't have to, you know, make plans with you that are like, you know, like, there's people who you can just be cool, calm, and collected with at work. And so I think that's one thing I struggle with. And then to answer my own question, there is a friendship in my adulthood that I had to cut off. And it was because, like, I had been, like, treated the way that the person was treating me, even though it was probably, like, their first time treating me like this. I had been treated like this by another group of friends before, and it kind of, like, really, like, hurt me so bad. And I was like, you know, like, this I cannot have happen to me again. Like, not only because, like, it was, like, hard to get through, but also just because I didn't deserve it. So, like, once I encountered that again as an adult, like, I gave the person an opportunity to talk about it. One thing about me, like, I'm always going to be like, well, let's just talk about it. But, like, I can only ask you to talk about it before I'm like, well, you know what? This was your time to hit the stage, and you ain't hit the stage. So if you're not going to get in the spotlight, I'm taking the spotlight down. Right. And so, like, I had to do that with that friend because I was, like, you know, trying to talk about something. I was like, hey, do you have time to talk? And they was being short with me. They was like, I'm busy right now. Maybe later. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to talk about X, Y, and Z. And they were still being short with me. And I was like, you know what? actually, I was trying to come to you on some big grown woman stuff, but you know what? Since you're not ready for that, how about we just, cut it off? And what that taught me is one thing. I feel like I wish I would have been more patient, in that moment with that person, just because I miss them currently. But also, like, even in still thinking about it right now, like, I'm glad I was able to like set that boundary.
Yeah.
Because it taught me that I'm like, it taught me that I'm capable of setting boundaries and sticking to them, and that I will be okay without them. I was okay before I met them. I am okay after I met them. And so that's what that taught me.
Yes.
I definitely, I would say it's interesting to listening to you talking about some of your friends or people at work. I think that tie of like thinking you want people to like you and things like that Emerald's talking about, for me, kind of ties into some of those things. There are times where like I do not really care to have a certain friendship or relationship with somebody, and I still invest in that because, or try and like, to be present for that because I know that they want that from me. And I think of like, that would hurt my feelings if I was really wanting to have a friendship with somebody and they were like, I'm not really interested in like spending time with you outside of this workspace. like, I'm clocking out today, and we're clocking out. Like, I feel like I'd be like, dang, that kind of like, that would make me sad, hurt my feelings. So a lot of times, I feel like I don't feel like I'm frequently in that position, but I feel like because of that, in the inverse, there are times where people are like, and I think I'm not really in that position because I don't think I'm the type of person naturally that is putting myself out there for you to come to me. There'll be times where I want somebody to like, I want to hang out with somebody maybe, or like I want to, them to text me or talk to me about this or that, or us to build more of a friendship. But I'll just wait until they ask me or something. But, that type of thing doesn't like even happen all the time. Just I think because when some of those things happen in the inverse, I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'll just text them, or, like, oh, I'll go to, this activity with them or do that with them. Even when it's not like what I'm like truly interested in doing. But I think I admire people who like stick to those boundaries, and because there's a lot of people who like, people say, oh, that was mean or that was this or that, but like you are not making yourself uncomfortable for the sake of somebody else, and I feel like that's important to do.
You can't.
So like that.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly agree, but this also kind of ties into something that I feel like I was talking about recently, which I feel like,
oh yeah, I know.
Yeah, kind of like this. I feel like, not that it's specific to our generation, but maybe we vocalize it a lot more because, one, we have been more equipped with like the language to do so, and two, we have like the mediums to kind of like talk about these things, Twitter, TikTok, like the whole like online spaces or whatever, where I do feel like we're forming a new culture in terms of how we deal with friendships and relationships that can be very like insular and like hyper independent in a way, and like, it's another good word for it, just kind of like self-serving in a sense. Not to say that that's what you're doing, but I'm saying like I feel like it's like a spectrum that you can fall on, and it's very like everything that we've been talking about. I feel like it's like, finding that balance, finding that moderation, because there's the other like side of it where it's like people lack like they don't think that they ever need to be uncomfortable, and that like that's just not like reality, like the truth is sometimes like if you do want to invest in friendships with people, or if you do want to make new friends, or like learn more stuff about other people, sometimes it does mean like you putting yourself out there, or sometimes it does mean like you doing something that you don't want to do. Again, going back to the whole like, oh, I can't take you, I can't pick you up from this thing because not because I don't have the time to do it, but because I don't really want to, but I want to pretend like it's somehow protecting my peace to like,
right, exactly, yeah, there's a lot of that we see too.
Yeah, so it's like I agree, but I also think
that too. The whole protecting your peace by day, like people misuse that all the time.
Yes,
continue.
Yes. But yeah, I do think that like, and it is like picking and choosing what you're willing to put your energy into. But sometimes it is gonna mean like being uncomfortable. Sometimes it is gonna mean like kind of extending the olive branch even when it's not like your job to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's gonna mean like forgiving and like learning to like navigate and move through like relationships with people and being able to actually like learn to let things go. Like I think we live in a culture where it's like the I like to say like the hot girl thing to do is like, you know, somebody wrongs you, you cut them off or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Like somebody, you know, hurts you or betrays you in some way, it's like, I'm protecting my peace, I'm cutting them off. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's not, I mean, that is like a perfectly valid way to live, but I don't think that's a way to live that is sustainable if you want to have like lifelong
It's not
friendships, because it's like people are gonna make mistakes, people are gonna mess up, you're gonna mess up, you're gonna need forgiveness sometimes, and it's like being able to be like on one end of the spectrum, being able to set those boundaries, and then on the other end of the spectrum, being able to, you know, move, like, you know, like the Bible says, kind of make allowance for each other's faults, and also being willing to just be uncomfortable sometimes.
Well, okay, so speaking of that, with just like, you know, some people don't always know how to be good friends. What is one thing you guys feel like you absolutely need out of, you know, your adult friendships, or out of a person, out of a friend in your adulthood? Like, I know we need multiple things, but what is like one thing that you feel like you like really need out of them?
Maybe understanding, not necessarily like grace, but just like I think you do have to just understand where I'm at and where you are, like give each other, you know, just understanding. I think everyone might be going through different things at different times, and there's a lot of things that we, even the three of us sitting here, may not know about each other and the week that we've had, and like some of the issues or encounters that we've had. So understanding that, like, hey, you know, even last night when we were baking and like everybody started making this little comment, okay, well, you said this and da da da. It's like, we're all tired. We're all, you know what I mean? It's 4 a.m. Like, you know, understanding, hey, like, this is my friend and this is somebody that I love and I care about, and she's kind and she's smart and she's like talented and she's sleepy right now. You know what I mean? And she's overworked right now, or she's overwhelmed, or she's this, you know, understanding like this
she's
might
not
be
really like that.
Yes, right. I know who you are and your character as a person, and I know that tomorrow morning you might be a little bit better. So it's like not necessarily someone that, like, making sure that you are able as well to there's a word I want to use here, like when you're able to have a shifted perspective, because you're not, the lens that you're viewing someone is, they're multi-dimensional person, but it's kind of in that sense of that who they are in this moment, or who, you know, not that they're a terrible person, but who, whatever they might be going through and things like that, does not necessarily speak to the character of who they are.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what tied to what I was saying before. Is like some of those things, these instances with you have with someone where it's not necessarily what they do in the moment, but who they show you they are after the fact, in terms of how they continue to treat you or respond, or etc. I think when you have that understanding with your friends that, hey, I might have been tired at this time, or I might have been busy at this time, I might have been, like, you know, she might have been in class at this time, you might have been at work at that time, like, I understand that you have your own life and your own things going on too, and I'm also there for you during that, the same way I'll be when you're at your baseline. So
that's valid. Understanding people's baseline. That's a word that somebody used. I feel like it's not the first time I heard the word, the first time I understood like what it meant when people said that. Understanding somebody's baseline. Yeah. And I think it's so interesting because it's like when something that we use a lot, like, and you'll see that, Emerald will see that a lot too. That's something that you use a lot in like healthcare. It's so important to know a patient's baseline, because that's how you'll know if something's wrong. Like a lot of people, someone comes in and they're like, they said like, oh, they got called because this person was acting a little off or whatever. This person's here, and we're like, you know, is that their baseline? Are they demented? Do they have dementia? You know, do they have a history of like a stroke or TBI or what have you? Like, is this their baseline, or is this something new that I should be
concerned
Yeah,
about, or
right.
you know what I mean? Because it's like, okay, I know Camryn's baseline, I know Emerald's baseline. When they deviate from that, something might be off, right?
Yeah.
But I know who they are at baseline, so it's just important to kind of take that into account whenever you're interacting with your friends, because it might be that she's right now, maybe something else is going on that could be causing that, or that could be causing her to act a little bit different than usual. And how can I support her too, right? And getting back to that baseline. So
Yeah.
What do you think? What's one thing you value in, or absolutely need out of a friend in adulthood?
I don't think it's that different from what I've needed from my friends in the past as well, which is just like the feeling of being of like comfortability and like levity and like.
You said levity?
Yeah.
What's that mean?
Like, not to be Dr. Theosaurus over here, but again, like just
sound like a dinosaur. Thesaurus, go ahead.
But just being able to have like light, fun times with people.
Oh, okay.
Like not like, and again, I feel like that's again kind of part of speaking to like what you're saying, like friendship with you should not be like a trial and tribulation in my life.
Seriously.
No,
Seriously.
valid.
So being able to like be yourself with people, feel accepted, have fun, make jokes, like that's kind of what I want out of like all of my friendships and stuff like that.
It's so important to be like received and feel like you can just be more so authentically yourself with people. Like I think there's so many aspects of life right now where we'll have to put on a front or like not be a fullest version of ourselves. So I think it's so important to like, especially as you get closer to weaning down, and I don't want to say weeding out friends or anything, but you know, as you get older, like I feel like when school and things like that, I feel like as you're in school and things like that, you have so many friends and so many relationships just because of people that you spend time with. But as you get older, you choose and you cultivate relationships and you choose like who you're pouring into. And so making sure that those are people that you are who you are with. Like it's not too much of a facade, or you don't have to stress about it. You can just be yourself and have fun and enjoy those moments. I think that will really turn into like we were talking about earlier, pouring into yourself because of just who you're able to be with them. It's really nice.
I don't know. I feel like for me it's standard, just kindness. I feel like
I was thinking of that too. That was another word I would have used, is kindness.
Yeah, because I feel like kindness like covers a lot of like other things. It doesn't cover everything, but like if you're just kind at your core, I feel like we can get through like anything. You know what I'm saying? Like you may be like, I don't feel like you can be kind and then also like super defensive also, or like you can be kind. Emerald disagrees.
I do.
I don't feel like you can be kind and like super judgmental, like super judgmental of me, or you can be kind and like, well, I would say, I know I told everybody one thing, but like I would say kindness and honesty. Because I think a lot of times people lose relationships or fracture friendships because they're just not honest about like how they feel. And honesty does come at a price, because like sometimes you're honest with somebody and they are like super defensive, and it's like, okay, like now I feel like I'm gonna be honest with you, but now I feel like if I am honest with you, like you're just going to reject that honesty or feel like the honesty is an attack or a judgment or an insult. So I feel like those are the two biggest things. But yeah, I don't think I necessarily meant to say you can't be kind and defensive. Emerald disagrees, but it's okay because I didn't really mean it. She said I don't want to go back and forth. Well, I want you to say your 2 cents if you have something to say about that.
I mean, I think like you kind of clarified. I think, and this is the thing I've been trying to kind of get across, which is not that you should just let people continuously disrespect your boundaries and be okay with it. It's just that like understanding that people make mistakes, people get really emotional and they say things that they don't mean, and that doesn't define who they are as a person or your entire relationship with them. Like, people, I don't know, people mess up all the time. I mess up all the time. There are times when I'm tired and I'm grumpy and I'm short when I should just be honest with how I'm feeling. Or like there's times when I'm like, I don't know, like I'm really burnt out and, somebody might be like, "Oh, you haven't reached out to me." Well, you haven't reached out to me. Like, I feel like it's very, and I don't think that necessarily cancels out who you are as a person. Like, I feel like those are temporary emotional states. And things can happen when you're in those temporary emotional states that can fracture your friendship and stuff. Basically, you shouldn't just let people walk all over you, but you also have to understand that people are human and they're going to make mistakes, and that doesn't always reflect who they are as a person, their character, their relationship to you.
Okay, so with that being said, like, and we talked a lot about friendships today, just to like leave the listeners with something, like, what is one piece of advice you would give to somebody who is in 30 seconds or less? What is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's like struggling to make friendships in their adulthood?
Ooh, you can start, Kyara.
30 seconds or less. I would just say what's the worst that could happen? I think that's what I'm going to say. I think in adulthood, something we didn't touch on too much, but is that, like we were talking about earlier a little bit, like sometimes there's a fear of, people accepting you or liking you or wanting to be your friend, etc. Like, I think sometimes, like, we go out and we don't talk to anybody else, or we don't, like, compliment anyone, or we don't say, like, oh, like, what brought you here today, or whatever. Like, I think some of the coolest people are people who are not too scared to, to be fun, to engage with other people, and even if it's a small interaction, to say something. I think there's a lot of fear around that in terms of, like, oh, like I don't know if I should say anything, or, oh, I want to interact with this person, what have you. So I think you should, like, we're a lot of times thinking of, like, what's the worst thing, like, the worst thing that would happen. But a lot of times that's not a part of the option. And at the end of the day, at least like, you made that effort and you tried. So you could be outside with some girls like us who are fun and exciting. And I think you should just, like, put your best effort to go to that event, or to, talk to those people, or to message someone on that app, or to tell somebody that, the compliment or reply to their story, or whatever it is, to kind of initiate something. And you could end up with a blossoming, blooming relationship that you didn't think you'd have.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Emerald?
That's a really good answer. That's kind of similar to what I was going to say, so I'm going to say something else. I would say, like, I guess, to have good friends, be a good friend. So, like, put a lot of effort into how you reach out to people, how you respond to people. Like Kyara was saying, like, be mindful in how you speak to people. And people will be responsive to that, I think. You will find your people. Just, be a good friend. And not to be like, oh, the universe will send them to you, or like God will send them to you. Because it's not always, like, sometimes, like Kyara said, you got to go out, make those friends. But the way to grow them is to not always focus on, like, do they like me, or am I being whatever? It's like, do I like them, and how can I be a good friend to them?
Facts. I would say to oh God, what was I gonna say? Why am I forgetting now? I'm gonna say like know yourself, so that you can like better know like what you expect out of a friendship and the type of person that you're looking for. Because I think there's a lot of misconception about like there's not somebody out there who's for you, or there's like not a tribe out there that exists for you. But that's just not true. Like there's a tribe for everybody. So like the better you know yourself and you're more honest with yourself about who you are and like what you actually like, the easier it's going to be for you to find that tribe. I think a lot of people, especially in this day and age, chase aesthetic, they chase status, they chase really aesthetic and status. But if you know yourself, then it's a lot easier to know like what exactly you're looking for, and to kind of weed out the things that you're not looking for and that you don't need. So yeah. So thank you, Kyara and Emerald, for checking in with me today. Yeah, definitely. I think this was a really good conversation just about friendships and adulthood that I've been wanting to have. especially as I'm about to be 25 this year.
Woo.
Joining the
Full
quarter century club.
Yeah, exactly,
Full frontal lobe
You know,
club.
So if
It's
you like,
it's developed right now.
God, please, I'm just not even ready. But if you like this episode of the Check-In Podcast today, please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can follow us on Instagram at the Check-In Pod 1. You can follow us on YouTube at the Check-In Podcast with me and Ian's logo in there. And yeah, like I said, like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. Don't gatekeep over here. And let us know in the comments what you would like for us to talk about next. Oh, and also your weekly playlist will be in the comments on Spotify and Apple Music. So yeah, checking out.
See you.
Checking out.
Checking out.
Peace.
Bye. Bye.